Let's get a deep look at Muktzeh, a deeper understanding of what Muktzeh is. Everybody talks about Muktzeh, Muktzeh, Muktzeh. What does it really mean? So we are in our daily shiur, Maseches Shabbos. We're starting a whole new Perek. This Perek is called Kol HaKelim, and it discusses Muktzeh, yeah, to the length and breadth of it. And this year's Leilu Nishmas, my father Menachem Ben Akiva, Tzlocho of everyone in Klal Yisrael, and all the hostages should be home soon. Kol Kelim. Before we start the Mishnah, let's give a small introduction. There are many types of Muktzeh. Chazal forbade us from carrying, schlepping, taking all kinds of things that are forbidden, and they're all called Muktzeh. What's the definition of the word Muktzeh? You know what Muktzeh means? Muktzeh means, sorry, set aside. Something that is Muktzeh, it's set aside, is designated for use, which is not, in this context, not the use I want to do on Shabbos, which means we spoke already in the second Perek about, or even the first Perek, mainly in the second Perek, we spoke about the fact that, for example, a dead body is muktzah. Dead body, why? There's nothing you can really do with a dead body that's constructed. The dead body is not something, hopefully, you're going to use for anything. And I just give this very morbid example because that was the first thing that was mentioned there in Perek Sheni as a historical fact. In the times of Shlomo HaMelech, he already asked Chachamim, what shall I do with my dead father's body, with the body of my dead father David, which died on Shabbos? A dead body is called Muktzeh Machmas Gufoy, meaning it's not something that is a kli. It's not something that can be used. It's set aside as a non-kli. Sticks, stones, yeah, grass, things like that, that could may be used, but they're not meant for use. They're not a kli at all. They're not kalim. They are non-kalim. That's one type. There are many other types, but right now we will focus on the second type. Our parak does not discuss mukta, which is a complete non-kli, non-entity, a stone from the park, a stick from the forest. Yeah, you can't pick up because of non-kalim. We're now going to discuss kol kalim. We're going to discuss things that are kalim, that are useful and usable, very much so. But those kelim are kli shemalachtu le'isu. Kli shemalachtu le'isu is more commonly known in the Jewish community. Every child knows that a pen, pencil, phone, these things are muktzed, are kelim, but the primary use is for iser. They're meant for meleches iser, yeah, for writing, for cutting, scissors, for example. Yeah, a spade is for gardening and so on, and therefore they are also called kelim of muktzeh, and that gzera was only established much later, not in the times of Shlomo. We're going to have some nice history lesson in a few days' time, very, very interesting, by the origins of Muktzeh. It started with the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. People then were very weak in the Shmiras Shabbos. So Ezra and Nehemiah felt, especially Nehemiah, they felt that it was important to really kind of, come down hard on people not to be Mechal Shabbos, and they forbade people from even moving any kli that can be used for Isser Shabbos, lest you come to do the Isser. There are a few reasons why Muktzeh is Osir, either because you may come to do the Malacha, or you may come to carry Mershus L'Rshus, you may come to schlep it from your house to the street. So we want to limit the amount of things that you carry indoors, lest you come to carry them outdoors, etc. We will see a lot of that later on. And there are other types of muktzeh, such as things that are very expensive. Yeah, machmas chesron kis, something that is set aside because it's just not something you let your children play with. You don't let anybody else play, such as working tools, artist tools, things that the shchita knife, things that people are very particular and makpid and very careful about. You leave them aside. Nobody from the family is supposed to touch it except for the father, the mother. These are also muktzah. So let's go. Let's start. Kol kelim nitolin b'Shabbos v'dal sosei nimoin. All kelim can be carried on Shabbos. According to Tosfos, it doesn't say all kelim can be carried, but all kelim hanitolin. Any kli that can be carried, schlepped around on Shabbos, meaning it's not muktzah, dal sosein imohen, Afal pishin ispalku b'Shabbos, which means, let's say you have a kli. We're talking about particular types of kelim. Let's talk about a small cupboard, a small closet, or a set of drawers, things like that. A box. These have doors. Yeah, think of a small aron. Yeah, like a cupboard, and you have doors. Now, you're allowed to schlep the cupboard, that's not muktzeh, and you can schlep the doors. What's the chiddush? Afal pi shenisparku. Even though the door was unhinged before Shabbos, the door already was detached from the kli. We're going to discuss the word b'Shabbos, as you can see, is in round brackets. It's going to be a big discussion in the Gemara. Let's say the door on Shabbos is already not attached to its father furniture, it's separate. I can still schlep it, even though one would argue and say, this is just a piece of metal or wood. There was a door and will be a door after Shabbos. I will fix it after Shabbos, either a day after or 3 months later, depends how diligent you are. But eventually, yeah, you tell your wife, yeah, I'll do it. I will fix that door. Since eventually the door will reconnect to the kli, even though right now the door is not a kli, is just a loose piece of, a flat door, detached, because it comes from a kli and will go back to a kli, hoya vehiyeh. Therefore, it's considered as a kli now too on Shabbos, and you can schlep it. You can use it as a tray. You can use it for all kinds of things, and you're allowed to use it even though it is not a kli right now. What's the chiddush? She'enan doimin al dalsos habayis lefi she'enan menamuchan. This is a stark contrast to dalsos habayis. Let's say you have a deles, you have a door of a house or a door of a room. That door was attached to your bedroom or to your children's room or to the house, and it was detached before Shabbos, unhinged. Now, what happens then? Now, are you allowed to schlep it on Shabbos? No. Why not? Because that door was attached to a house, mechubar lakarka. And what's going to happen with it at the end? Well, after Shabbos, darling, I will reattach it to what? To the house. Oh, I'll hinge it back to the house, to the lintel. Therefore, that door is not part of a kli. It's really part of a binyan. It's part of mechubar lakarka. And as we said before, halacha puts a very strong dichotomy between kalim and karka. Karka is not kalim and kalim is not karka. Things that are attached to the ground are not kalim. Your house is not a kli. So since this door belongs to a house, even though now on Shabbos it's very tempting to use a door as a tray. Yeah, people do that. A big door and add a big kiddush for 500 people, whatever, because I finished, Perek Sheshesle. Now what? I can't use that door as a tray. Why? Because that door was and will be part of a house, not part of a kli. If it's not viewed as a kli and it's meant to be detached from me, excuse the pun, it's meant to be part of a house, not part of a movable kli, therefore it's not a kli. Something that's not a kli is doomed to be muktzeh, even if temporarily it's mobile and handy. That's the main part of the first part of the Mishnah. Noitel Odom Kornas. What we will see from now on till the end of the Mishnah is actually halacha l'maisa. Yeah, surprisingly enough. Yeah, not all Mishnahs are la halacha, but excuse me. I'll give you a small introduction. A kli shemalachtu le'isu, as we said, you have a kli. That is a kli. It's however you translate kli, vessel, utensil, you call it whatever you want. That kli is normally primarily for meleches isu. It's meant for cutting, for gardening, for whatever. Yet you are allowed to use kli shemalachtu le'isu letzorech gufay or letzorech mekoymay. Gufay means if I need to use a kli shemalachtu le'isu for an act that's mutter, let's say, as we're going to see many examples, that's allowed. Some say, and as far as I know, that's halacha, only if you have no other choice. Yeah, if you have no other choice, so it's mashma also here from Rashi. At the end of the Mishnah, let's say you lost your key, your maftach efes, your skeleton key. You can take a needle, which is melach talisser, tofer, and you can use it instead of your key. Why? Because if there's no choice, no pikuach nefesh or hefset stam. If I can't use the normal kli, I'm allowed to take kli shemalachto isu and use it for meleches heter, for mutter action. That's only true about kli shemalachto leisu. It's not true about stones and sticks. Them you cannot use at all. Okay, let's see. Notolodum kurnas, a person may take a hammer, which is usually used for hammer, for building, knocking, to crack open the nuts. Your nut cracker is not to be found anywhere. You can take a hammer from the storage room, from your toolbox, take the hammer and crack the nut, no problem. Kardom, Kardom is a type of an axe. Axe is meant for cutting wood or stuff like that. That's muktzeh. Yes, but you can use it in order to cut the fig pie. Yeah, you have many times we mentioned in the Metzias, they take a lot of figs and they connect them together. They make them very, very hard. It's really, really hard. You have to cut it hard. So you're allowed to take the axe and cut the food. It's an oster kli for mutter purpose is okay. Megero, you are allowed to take a saw, that you cut the wood with. La gurba is sagvina, very, very hard European yellow cheese. It gets very, very hard. The big blocks of round yellow cheese, you know what I'm talking about? Like in Switzerland, in Holland, I guess in America too. So those real hard cheese, you need a serious saw to cut it. That's okay. I'm allowed to eat cheese on Shabbos, late shalashudas, and the cheese is hard. I take a saw from a toolbox normally used for cutting wood, and I cut the cheese. Magreifa lagruf by sagroigrois. Magreifa is a rake. Usually I use the rake what for? Either for gardening or for raking out the coals from the oven. I'm allowed to take the magrefa to remove and rake away the groigrois. What are groigrois? These are the figs. Yeah, figs that are inside the chovis, inside a kli. There's a lot of small figs that are stuck inside. I can take that, tool, that gardening tool, and remove them from the inside. Another example is rachas vesamalges. These are big gardening tools. Rachas is like a spade. Malges or mazleg is a garden fork. Losses olive lakoton. Remember that example because that example will be a tiebreaker later. Basically, you can take big gardening tools and use them as a spoon or a fork to give food to a little child. Although it's very strange, very abnormal. But let's say you lost the spoon, you lost your fork, you don't have any. You can take the gardening ones and give them, put food on them, and feed the child. Okay. It's a kush v'es a karkar. Kush and karkar are weaving tools. Kush and karkar are weaving tools and also spinning tools. Litchov boy, you're allowed to take them in order to stab fruit with them. Look at the nice little fancy parties, kiddushim. You have, the herring or all these fruit. You have like toothpicks. You can take weaving tools, which are clearly menachto le'isu, and you can take them and stick them in the food and eat them at your Shabbos cocktail party. Now, last but not least, two types of needles. Machat shel yad, the small hand needle meant for sewing, for stitching. Little bosakoitz. This is also important to remember. We're going to discuss that. You're allowed to, if a person Khalila has a thorn or a splinter stuck in their body, in their finger, you can take the machat meant for sewing, and therefore melach leisu. You can take it in order to remove the splinter from your body. And v'shel sakoin, the big what's its name? The big needle, the big needle which is meant for sewing sacks, more like industrial, bigger things. Allowed to take that needle, liftoich bo sadelis. As I told you, let's say you lost your key, you lost your skeleton key. Now you can take the big needle and play around with it until you open the door. These are many examples for kli shemalachto leisu that you may use it for meleches heter. But there are other things you're not allowed to use it for, which we'll discuss later. I want to first finish the Amud now, and then we can advance as much as we can to do more be'iyun. Says the Gemara. The Gemara starts with a diuk from the beginning of the Mishnah. Kol hakelim nitolin, ve'af al pi shenisparku b'Shabbos. It looks like the Mishnah is telling me, according to this girsa, all kelim are allowed to be schlepped, including the doors, yeah, even though the door was unhinged and dismantled on Shabbos, meaning when Shabbos came in, what was the status? It was a nice, normal, good cover, yeah. And on Shabbos, at some point, my 3 years old or a goy or I don't know who or the cat, somebody, what did they do? They unhinged it, and then in spite of that, I can still move them. I can still move them around. Says the Gemara, are you telling me velomi bai bechol? Meaning, needless to say, that if they were detached on Friday or Thursday, and when Shabbos came in, they were already detached, then for sure you can move them. Because we say, afal pishin is palku b'Shabbos, even though they were detached on Shabbos. That's strange. Why? You're telling me that if they were detached on Shabbos, right, you can use them. If detached in Chol, yeah, all the more so. Frag the Gemara, no, adrabe. Not true, does make sense. Now let's see the opposite logic. B'Shabbos, you know the rule. We saw it in Daf Mem Gimel, and we saw it 10 times since. We have a rule in Shabbos that whatever happens at the entrance of Shabbos, as Shabbos comes in, the beginning of Shabbos, that sets the tone for the entire Shabbos. And we know that the more the kli is attached, the more that the door, that questionable door, which is now detached, the more it's part of the kli, the better. Let's put two and two together and get the question. Now the question will be very clear. At the contrary, Adrabah, b'Shabbos muchon el gabe avien, b'chol ein muchon el gabe avien, which means on Shabbos, something that was unhinged on Shabbos, in Shabbos, when Shabbos came in, your wife was lighting the candles, and then there was shkia, and that during that time it was attached to the kli, and only detached later. Then, of course, it's okay. It's more attached to the kli because when Shabbos came in, that's when we take, so to speak, the halachic photo. That's the status of the kli. What was its status when Shabbos came in? It was attached. The door was part of a functional good kli, so of course you can use it. Bechol, on a weekday, it's worse. It's more of a chiddush. If it was detached on Friday morning, I'm still picking a time, and as Shabbos came in, it was already detached, it's worse. It's worse. Because as Shabbos came in, it was already disconnected. You want to tell me that even though Bechol, fine, but it's not what the Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah is saying even the one detached on Shabbos. No, it should be even the one detached on Chol is still okay, in spite of being detached by lichtbenching and shkia. Amar Abaye, lichtbenching, by the way, is not a good example because you lichtbench before Shabbos. I meant when Shabbos comes in. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, no, you misread the Mishnah. Achikoma. This is what the Mishnah really means to say. Kol kelim nitolin b'Shabbos. All kelim that can be schlepped around on Shabbos, there del soseyen imohen, and the doors can also be schlepped with them. Af al pi shenisparku b'chol nitolin b'Shabbos. Enochinami. Af al pi shenisparku does not relate to Shabbos. Af al pi and Shabbos are not friends. You're right. Shabbos is not af al pi. Shabbos is clearer, is better, is a more sensible thing. He means to say, even though the nispark on a weekday, which means they were detached right from the beginning of Shabbos, even so you can schlep them on Shabbos. Tosfos points out something interesting here, and I will finish the Amud Bli later, and then I do believe today we'll have time to go back to two Tosfosim. Okay, but first let's get the Gemara's message, and then hopefully I believe we'll have time, and we will see the Tosfos. Tono bono. This brisa will be analyzed here until the two dots. Deles shel shida v'shel teva v'shel migdal. The door of shida, teva, migdal are three types of cupboards. One of them is like a box. One of them is taller. One of them is wider. The kitzur, we're talking here about furniture with doors. You have a furniture, a cupboard, doors, yeah, box, whatever. So what about them? Noitlin aval loy machzirin. Hmm? On Shabbos, you're allowed to unhinge them on Shabbos. You're allowed to detach the door from the furniture on Shabbos. That's allowed. Avaloi mechzirin, you're not allowed to put it back. You can't hinge it, put it back onto the furniture. Interesting. The shalul shultan goyim, the chicken coop, that building, which is not a choshev building, and it's a temporary building, but it's a building nevertheless. It's attached to the ground, the chicken coop. Lo noitlin velo mechzirin. You're not allowed to remove the door of the chicken coop. You're not allowed to restore and hinge back the chicken coop. That's not allowed. Okay, that's the end of the brisa. So home cupboards, home furniture, very interesting. Yeah, what do we say? You are allowed to take off. You're not allowed to put back on. Okay, and the lushot and neither one is okay. Frag the Gemara. And by the way, I just want to warn everybody, as you can already see where the wind's blowing, we're not talking about Muktzeh, we're talking about the malacha of binyan and stira. Everybody knows that two of the 39 malachas are binyan and stira. You're not allowed to build, and you're not allowed to dismantle and destroy and demolish on Shabbos. Just a reminder. Frekt the Gemara. Bishlama. Oh, the line starts with the word Bishlama. Bishlama shalushot on a chicken coop, at least the bride says consistent. Kasova, he believes, Bala Braisa believes, Kevin the Mechabri Be'ara, since the chicken coop is connected to the ground, Yesh Binyan Bakarka, Yesh Stira Bakarka, which means, I told you, and I'll tell you again, and I'll probably tell again 10 times. Halacha always differentiates between things that are attached to the ground and detached from the ground. Elul Shoter Negolim may not be a choshuv, as a house, may have its, it always mentions a place that smells bad, v'chule. But lamaisa, the chicken coop is a building. It's attached to the ground, and anything that's attached to the ground, we can easily compare to the Mishkan. Just like binyan and stira, building and demolishing, both apply to the Mishkan, obviously. And we learn from the Mishkan, the malacha of binyan and stira, two separate avos malacha, they both apply to anything, any kind of living area, even though it's small, and for stunken, and for chicken, it's built on the ground, it's attached to the ground, and therefore binyan and stira both apply to it. So it's at least consistent. A little shot in the you can't demolish, meaning remove the door, and you can't build, i.e., attach the door. Great. Now, what about the second group? What about the cupboard, the shrunk, the whatever? I'm saying the same thing in different languages. Yeah, all types of cupboards and furniture. What are they? They're not a house. What are they? Mobile things. They are kalim. Before we continue, let me just pause a second. I just want to help you with the upcoming piece of Gemara. There's a big machloekes in Beitza, which seems to be machloekes b'Shamai b'Sila, then we say it's not. The Kitzer, there's a big need on all over Maseches Beitza in a few places about binyan v'stira b'kelim. When we say that binyan v'stira apply to binyan, to a building, that's indisputable. What about a kli? Am I allowed to build a kli? Am I allowed to build a vessel, a chair? Am I allowed to build a box on Shabbos and demolish it? Yes or no? It's a machloekes. Machloekes. You may sound surprised because of the way I said it now is like Rashi, not like the other Rishonim. I'm not following Rashi. Rashi, it's a machloekes whether binyan applies to kelim or does not apply to kelim at all. Kelim are not similar to the Mishkan. Maybe binyan and stira just don't apply to them, or maybe yes. It's a discussion now, and I'm going to talk about Rashi and then the other Rishonim. Ella, here comes the question. Shel shida v'shel teva v'shel migdal, my kasava, which side are you on? What's this business of telling me that I can detach it, but I can't attach it? Mimanavshach, make up your mind. Ikasava yesh binyan b'kelim. If you believe that binyan, the malach of binyan, applies to kelim, to things that are detached from the ground, the cupboard, the chair, the whatever, the table, then yesh stira b'kelim. Stira should also apply. Same thing. Binyan and stira are two opposites of the same coin. the ain't steer bekelim. And if you think steer does not apply to kelim, and that's why you so happily allow me to remove the door of the cupboard, ain't steer bekelim, then ain't binyan bekelim. Then binyan should not apply to kelim either. What's going on over here? I just want to point out something before we continue to give you a little another hint on the way. Rashi would never say that ein binyan bekelim allows you to actually build an entire chair or an entire box. Why? Because Rashi believes that there's another malacha called, I mean, we all believe it's such a malacha, but Rashi applies it over here, maki bepatish. It says Rashi enechnami, when you build a chair, you only chayav because of the final blow. The Moshe Feinstein says final blow can also be every stage of the malacha. That's another thing. Alamai said that's the beginning of a bona, kav beis amud beis, where this diuk in the Mishnah. In any event, maki bepatish applies to kelim, but boina doesn't. That's what Rashi and the Meiri, as far as I remember, the only two ones, as far as I remember, they say ain't binyan bekelim means there's no binyan whatsoever. But the question is still a question. What's going on here? Yeah? If there's no binyan, no stira. Yesh binyan, yesh stira. What's this inconsistency? Why are you telling me you are allowed to detach, but you're not allowed to attach? Omar Abaye says Abaye, answer number one. Abaye wants to change the words of the Braisa. Really, both binyan and stira apply to kelim. Yeah, okay. So how can you tell me that I can detach it? He didn't say you can't detach. V'shenitlu ka'omar. Here, there's machlokas Rashi Tosfos. Rashi says shenitlu means you have to change the word noitlin. If you go back to the Braisa, Dela shel shida teva migdal doesn't say noitlin avalo mechzirin. It says shenitlu avalo mechzirin, meaning it's a story. It's a fact. If there were nitlu, if Tim McKenzie or my little 3 years old or whoever or a monkey came and detached it, or maybe before Shabbos they detached it, then I'm allowed to what? Nothing. I'm not allowed to attach it. That's it. It doesn't say that you are allowed to be noitel to remove them. If they were removed, then so and so and so. Tosfos says something else. Tosfos says nitlu is halacha. It's coming to tell you that if the door was unhinged, then you're allowed to move it. Nitlu as metaltel. It's a muktzeh halacha. Yeah, it's coming to tell you that the door of the cupboard, as we know, you're allowed to move it around, like the Mishnah said. We're going to follow Rashi and Tosfos now too. Rava is responding to Abaye. There are 2 reasons why I don't like what you're saying, Abaye. I don't like your answer, Abaye, and I'll tell you why for 2 reasons. Choda, first of all, the noitlin ktani. Yeah? It says noitlin, you're changing the word. The word of the Braisa is shenitlu. No, it doesn't say shenitlu. It says noitlin. How can you change the word of the Braisa? We sometimes do change words of Braisa, but it's not ideal. I think the Braisa is exact, and it says noitlin as it's telling an imperative. You are allowed to be noitel. It's not saying if it was taken by someone else. The oid, and another answer, another punchline answer, my aval loy mechzirin. The syntax really does make sense. How can you say kenitlu avalo machzirin? Listen to the word. Listen to the sentence in English. According to Bai, it says the doors of the cupboards that were taken, but you can't put them back. Doesn't make sense. They were taken, they were removed by someone, but you can't put them back. It doesn't shtim. Doesn't read right. According to Tosfos, the question is. According to Tosfos, the question is. If you're telling me that the first sentence is telling me I'm allowed to move it around mitzad muktzeh, then this brisa is talking chalk and cheese, apples and oranges. This brisa is telling me, you are allowed to move around the door of the cupboard. You want to use it as a tray for your cholent, but you can't put it back. It's 2 separate halachic issues, right? Like I will tell you, you're not allowed to eat chazir, but Yom Kippur is out 5 o'clock. What? Yeah, both are true, but it's not the way to talk. Yeah, you're not allowed to eat chazir, but the tiniest is over at 5:03. What? Yeah, but means there's a connection, and here there's no connection to halachic issues. Ela Omarove. Oh, Now comes Rav, and this is Nogea La'alocha. This is a big, big Yesoid. And now I'm going to bring Tosis and the other Rishonim. Elo Marove, Kasovar, and Binim Bekelim and Stir Bekelim. This Bryce is super consistent. Midoraisa, there's no binyan and no stira in kelim. According to Rashi, not at all, ever, never. There's no binyan, no stira, and therefore midoraisa, you're allowed to detach the door from the cupboard and reattach it, hinge, unhinge, boom, 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 as much as you like midoraisa. Aye. So why did we say you're not allowed to reconnect it? Why aren't you allowed to attach it? You know why? The gzera shema yitka, gzera de rabbanon. Rabbanon are concerned that if you come to stick back, to hinge back the door to the cupboard, what you're going to do, you may come to start using, to do it more professionally, you may come to stick it well, to really click it in well, you may come to use all kinds of masmerim, sichin, you may come to, Rashi says, sichin v'yesedos, or sakin v'yesedos, you may come to start using what? Nails. You may come to start banging and really doing it very well. And that will be a problem. Excuse me, I have a question now. It's my turn to ask questions. So what? Doesn't Rashi believe that there is no problem of bone? Let me use 10 nails and 5 hammers. And why not? Oh, what did I tell you before? Maki bepatish. Rashi says, once you do it really well and it's a boom, a nice professional final bang on the door to make it really well and really well attached, that will be already exceeding into where? Make bepatish, which is forbidden lekula alma, even by kelim. So let's review the halacha according to Rashi, according to Rava. Says the Brisa as follows. You want to detach the door? Bevakasha. The door is a door of a kli. There's no stira when it comes to kelim. Go ahead, demolish the kli and detach the door from the kli. I'm not saying halacha l'maisa, by the way. There are many, many details here in halacha. It's one of those crazy, very, very many details. But in general, go ahead, detach the door. You want to put back the door? Midoraisi could be okay. You're just attaching it, boom. But that boom, the hinge is not really working right. Let's get the handyman here to really screw it here, use a screw, use a thing to make a ganze maisa, which is already belonging to a different Abel Chakot Make Bepatish, and that's bad news, which is also the Oraisa. Ad kan kofa aleph Rashi. According to Tosis and most Rishonim, a lot of Rishonim, they all use different Lashonas, but they all say as follows. They say generally is like that. They say ein binim v'stir b'kelim is halacha. That means that if you make some kind of sloppy or additional building or something which is adding to the binyan of a kli, not professionally, not well done, or just adding a piece to the kli, that is okay. However, if you start building a kli from scratch, you take pieces of wood and you really grab you start sticking and building, you are chai because of boine. To make a kli ex nihilo from just sticks, you make boom, a whole new kli, that's midoraisa, iser of boine. That's most Rishonim except for Rashi and the Meiri. Yeah? Also they believe, and that's how they interpret our Gemara, the Yitka, if you build something, and the Mishnah Berurah brings it down, if you build something, b'derech loshen harishonim, remember chizuk ve'umnus. If you build something in a way that's really strong and clicks very well, and or professionally, I don't know the getter exactly, I have to say, but if it's built really well, forget about maki bepatish, then boina applies. So to say en bina bekelim is true, but it's extremely limited. So you may ask, so what's the difference between a building and a kli? There is a difference. Let's say you have a house. Yeah, in your house, attached to the wall, there's a small screw, a small nail, and you just stick it in a little bit. In the house, you have to be very careful because the house is mechubar lakarka. Even very inferior ways of binyan are called binyan and also doraisa. I'm not a poisik, but ask your Rav. Yes, sometimes people don't realize it was in the guy's house. He just was mechazik. He strengthened the screw of his faucet, of his tap. It's also doraisa possibly. Why? Because this tap is attached to the house, obviously. to the kitchen door, to the kitchen wall, sink, and you're mechazik it. Because it's binyan, it's also could be the oraisa. The same thing with a kli may not necessarily be osir, because you're only doing something small. Yeah? But if you do something chazak, strong and professional to a kli, it is osir, also the oraisa. And binyan bekeli means you don't have all types of binyan kelim, only the strong ones. That's Lefi most Rishonim. Lefi Abai, what do you mean? Abai doesn't. I don't know if Abai believes in that. Maybe he believes in that, but it doesn't say it applies over here. I don't know. I don't know what would Abai say to Rav? Either believes that it's true, but it doesn't think that's shot over here. Maybe it has a whole different shot. I don't know. I may have to see in Beitza. I don't remember. I don't remember now, to be honest, what Abai says in Beitza. Weiter. Not a lot of kornas. I will continue now because we have a lot to do still tomorrow also. Not a lot of kornas. Amar Rav Yehuda. Kornas shel egoizin lefatzeh boisei egoizin. As opposed to what I told you, and as opposed to Pasha Pshat, Rav Yehuda says, you know what kind of hammer can be used in order to crack the nuts? The hammer that's meant for cracking the nuts, what we would call a nut cracker, that you're allowed to take and crack the nuts. Aval shel napochin loy. Yeah? If you want to take the hammer of the blacksmith, the oster, and use it for an okay malacha, that you're not allowed to do. Kasova, or Yehuda thinks, Dova shemlachta leisu, afilo tzorch gufay osu. Let me explain everything. First of all, the Isser and the Heter. Says Rav Yehuda, as opposed to what we said, says Rav Yehuda, no, I don't believe in that kula. You want to take something that's primarily for Isser. The hammer is for building. You want to use it for, it's a klish malach classical. And you want to use it for cracking the nuts, that's not allowed. So what did the Mishnah allow me? I have a nut cracking hammer. I'm allowed to use it for the nuts. Everyone here is asking, I can read your minds. Everyone's asking, what's Chiddush? What? Why would I think otherwise? If this nut is really, if this patish, if this hammer is a nut cracking hammer, of course I can use it for cracking the nuts. Rashi is hinting, if you see Rashi later, homework, Rashi says, Ikar lemelechus heter. Oh, this hammer is used mainly for the nuts, for the nut cracking. But sometimes when I have to, I use it in order to bang the nail into the wall. And sometimes I use it in order to break something. So that's a chiddush. Even though there is this 10-20% of Isser use in the Kli, it's still allowed. But something that's 80% for Isser, that I'm not allowed to use for anything on Shabbos. That's what Rav Yehuda holds. That's a chiddush. Amar le Rabbe, says Rabbe, if we go through the list of examples of the Mishnah, it's a very long list. According to you, something doesn't make sense. Elamata, according to you, Seifa. What does it say in the Seifa? Diktani, it says, Rachas and are gardening tools. By definition, they're big tools, the spade and the rake, the fork. We say you're allowed to use them, losses all of lakoton. You're allowed to use them to give food for a small child, which is bizarre. You take something big, you have no choice, the little one doesn't eat, you give him with a big kli. Are you serious? There's never such thing. You're telling me that all these cases of the Mishnah, let's say I have a needle, that needle is meant for opening doors. I can hear that. But never in my life did I hear of a big kli, a big spade that's lechatchila used to feed the little child's mouth. Obviously, it's a bizarre, grotesque kind of thing. It's not meant to be lechatchila, so your theory doesn't work in that case. Ela maraba and haloch is like Rabba. Kunas from the pachin, the fetzeba egoizin. A kunas, the hammer of the blacksmith, is allowed to be used in order to crack the nuts. Kasobar, because Rabba thinks davar shemalachtu leisu letzorch gufoy mutar. Oh, and that is so. Davar shemalachtu leisu, a kli that normally 80% of it is used for iser. It's still a kli. Chachamim did allow you, usually when you have no other choice, to use it for a mutar malocha. I'm sorry I didn't get to the Tosas that I wanted to, but I'm happy we managed to finish the Amud today for a change. I usually don't mind, but it's important to get it. And see you tomorrow. Atzlach, thank you very, very, very much, and thank you to my Talmidim in Reishit who are learning this with me, especially Daniel Englander. Very good boy, and we're learning this together. Atzlacha Bracha, thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday night. This week again, I hope you don't mind, please, but Thursday night, no, here. Shir Mutzash. Mutzash Shabbos is Shir. Not Thursday? Good, yeah. Much, much better for me. I don't know if it will always be like that, but this time of year, it works better for me, okay? So Mutzash Shabbos, special mitzvah, Mutzash Shabbos. Thank you very much. Thank you to our YouTube viewers and for Torah Anytime. Atzlacha Bracha. Thank you.